And we are live. Welcome, folks, to episode 3471. I just noticed in the screen there the beard's getting a bit scruffy. I'm a while from needing my hairs cut again, but maybe I do need to give a little trim on the beard. I'm starting to look a little bit like Santa. I hate the time of year for that. It's spring. It's time for planting, not celebrating Christmas at the end of the year. We just did that not so long ago, so I got to get rid of the Santa look here. Anyway, what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about something today called the enrollment cliff. And this is a phenomenon I've talked about quite a few times in the past. It is not an unknown. It's not something that like I am breaking news today or anything. This is very well known. There are entire marketing and advertising agencies that are developing specific programs to help colleges survive the enrollment cliff. What's the enrollment cliff? Well, in 2009, Americans had an abrupt drop-off in how many new babies we were making. Now, this is something that's been slowly coming all along, but in 2009, we had the first actual less new people than prior years. Like not just going down, but actually going negative to the prior years. And what happens when you do that? Well, 18 to 20 years later, when colleges are going, so who wants to go to college? There's simply less people. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not talking about just less people that want to go to college. I'm talking about less people to find people who want to go to college, qualify, have the money and the motivation to go from the total student body available. And, well, I'd like to tell you that maybe that has changed some over the years since 2009, but it hasn't. We have lower birth rates and lower fertility rates today than we did back in 2009. And so this is something that people have been warning about for several years. And we have this tendency in America, years, anything's measured in years. We don't worry about shit measured in years. We worry about this week, today, maybe this quarter. Years. Well, the funny thing about years is they have a tendency to kind of accumulate over time. And all of a sudden, what was several years away or 10 years away is a year away. And sometimes the problem that you're forecasting actually starts before you get to the deadline. And what I mean by that is college enrollment has been down anyway. Okay, so you have this reduction in student body. Just graduating seniors from high school, people qualified to go to college. That number is going to go down drastically next year. The graduating class of next year will be smaller than the graduating class of this year, and that will continue. And so when we look around and we see the college landscape and these thousands and thousands and thousands of schools that represent trillions of dollars in the United States economy, because it's so much bigger than tuition, books, and dorm fees. And we'll talk about that more today. This is a problem. Now, I know many of you know who I am. You know what I'm about. And I think at least half the people that go to college probably shouldn't have anyway. So you might be, Jack is probably cheering this on, woohoo. On one hand, yes. And on the other hand, being a pragmatist that understands that anything that gets this big, when it starts to decline and shrink, there are people that will be hurt in the process. And understanding this is more like a canary in the coal mine. Like this is, my hope today is we're going to focus almost exclusively on the college issue, but that the pattern recognition will come through and you'll start to realize well, this is just happening in so many places in America today. We've built something up on fake money, on a fake premise. And then when the system becomes in trouble, our solution is to grow at all costs, never admit that we're wrong, never retool, never refocus, never change anything, just try to save it. And if you do that long enough, the eventual failing is far more catastrophic than if it had been accepted early on. In other words, we had time to do something about this that was actually productive, to actually start reallocating resources to training people for the jobs that are actually out there that employers actually want them trained to do, but we didn't. And we'll talk about all of that and more in just a moment. Before we do, though, I would like to invite you to come hang out with me. Not this month, which it is April 1st. By the way, if you follow me on Twitter, yeah, it was an April Fool's joke. 90% of the people who responded to the post I'm talking about got that it was a joke. I'll go ahead and tell you what I said. I only did it on X. I really am not big on April Fools. It just hit me funny this morning. I thought I would do it. I made a post that was something to the effect of, okay, you guys have gotten through to me. I'm going to vote harder too. And I'm going to do everything I can to get RFK Jr. elected. Tune into today's show to learn more about that. And no, it's April Fool's. I had a couple that got really angry about how he's a gun-hating commie and how could I do this? And you need to get a calendar and learn how to use it. But that's not what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about this fiscal cliff and the effects on society as a whole and what we can learn from it and what we can do about it. Before we do that, let's go ahead and hear from our sponsors of the day. And that's where I was going. I want to invite you to come meet me in May. And I guess what made me think of that is April, May, right? So it's April Fool's Day. Anyway, May 17th through the 19th, I think, are the dates. I'll know that for sure in just a second. But John Bush is putting on Exit and Build 4, I believe. Is this the fourth one of these? I think I've spoken at all of them. I'm calling it Exit and Build 24 because it's easier for me to remember the year than how many times I've been down to Bastrop now. But it's going to be a great event. And I'd like you to listen to a little bit about it from John.
The entire system, government, mega corporations, the media is basically a big fraud. After COVID, this pandemic, a lot of people woke up. They pushed too hard and caused a lot of people to start questioning the status quo. We decided, let's put together an event, bring together people that want to homestead, that want to build community, but don't know how or don't believe in their ability to do so.
We have the hippies and the lefties, and then we have the Ron Paul libertarians and the Rothbardian and the anarchists.
This homesteading, regenerative agriculture, permaculture, living together, buying land cooperatively, that is the new path forward.
It's brought together people from all walks of life, and that's what's so beautiful is that when you come together for a purpose like this, it unites everyone rather than divides everyone.
Don't just oppose something, rather stand for something.
The Exit and Build Land Summit has been awesome. And I would say to anybody out there who's considering doing this next year, do it. You won't be disappointed.
I'm going to say, guys, definitely.
The entire system, government, mega corporations.
Definitely think about upgrading your tickets and getting a VIP ticket. I think you'll really enjoy the extras that come with that. The VIP dinner, for instance, and some of the other networking opportunities have been worth, honestly going down there alone. And I'll just say again, I do this event in spite of the fact that spring's so busy for me for two reasons. One, it is reasonably easy for me to do. It's a 3-hour plus drive. And then the other is just what a great job John does. So definitely consider coming down there and meeting me and some other really cool people. Next up today, JM Bullion. We're going to be talking about some systemic level problems today. Yeah, we're going to focus mostly on the college issue and what that says about the country as a whole. But as you'll see, it all stems from rotten money, fiat money. We're in a peak fiat world. That's why everything doesn't make sense anymore. That's why you look at things and go, how can this be? Well, it can't be if value really had to reflect value, right? That would never, the stuff we have going on today would never happen. Some of the lunacy we have going on would never happen. The endless wars would never happen. Real money is important, and we are heading for a place where eventually that reality is going to sink in for a lot of people. I am a huge believer in Bitcoin. I always will be, but I've also never stopped stacking silver and gold. I recommend you check out JM Bullion. They've been with us for more than a decade now. That's a long time in the world of podcasting, more than a decade. They give you guys a discount. If you're an MSB member, they give you free shipping. And they have some of the best pricing in the industry. And if ever necessary, I can talk directly to the president of the company to fix problems should they pop up. Though, while I keep saying that, I haven't had anything that I've had to step in for in years at this point. But the reason I bring that up, just so you know, in the very beginning, there were some logistical issues. I mean, we're going back 10 years plus now. And when I reached out to Michael, who's the president of the company, and said, hey, look, I want you to see what's going on. He didn't say, oh, go away, leave me alone. He said, thank you for telling me. Now I can fix it. And I helped him make his company better, and he was grateful for it. And that is the kind of partner that I'm looking for in a sponsor. All right, with that, let's go ahead and dig into things today and start off with kind of, I just want to reiterate as we dive in. I want you to understand that this is one way of seeing the larger problem in our country. That this is really about a system that has made people less intelligent and less educated at the same time, while believing that they're more intelligent and more educated. And in a world that's so built upon a completely insane monetary system that we can't help but have these problems. And so if we have this insane fake money, then we're going to have insanely fake food. Then we're going to have chronic diseases and illness. So even though I'm about to go all in on the college side and this enrollment cliff, understand you should be identifying other patterns in other places. And the food system and the medical systems are just two of all of them. If you think about when you turn the television on, when you make that horrific mistake to actually see what the mainstream media is talking about, I'll bet you at least half of what you hear, you're like, this can't be right. This can't be right. People can't actually think this way. And then you know that they do. And you're like, it just bothers you. And if you haven't reached that point yet, you probably don't listen to this show, so it doesn't matter. But like so many things, if we look at this college enrollment cliff peaking or beginning to really fall off the deep end in 2025, which is just next year. Like I said, when I first started talking about this, it was about 2018. It was pre-COVID. And when you talk about something that's 7 years away in this world today, people are like that. 7 years is not that long in this world. It really isn't. I can go back 3 sevens, and I was still a grown-ass man running companies, right? 21 years ago. I was just about getting ready to do this podcast, that's been 16 years. So 7 years isn't that far. And when you can clearly see the problem, you should ignore something because it's 7 years away. And I want to be clear on this problem. Like, when people say we only have 10 years to act on climate change, and they said that in 1989, you're in the world of opinion. You're in the world of opinion. No matter what your opinion is, I'm sorry, you're in the world of opinion. When you're talking about body count that's going to either fill or not fill the seats of universities across the country, and we have census, and we know how many people there are, then this is coming. This is not a maybe. This is a definitely. And when I talk about some of the solutions to this, you're just going to shake your head. And you're also going to go, I can't believe it, but yet it's exactly what I would expect. That's how backwards the world is. When you get into a place where you're constantly doing the face palm, and you're just like, oh my God, I can't believe this. And at the same time, it's also what you expect. You live in the upside down. You live in a society that's already begun its collapse, like I keep telling you. So it all really did begin in 1971. So we're talking about 2025, but we're going to say the genesis is 71. And if you look at a graph, the place where the graph really goes parabolic is 1975. And it took a certain amount of time, 4 years. Isn't that an interesting number? It took about 4 years for college to catapult itself off the 1971 decision to change the monetary system to a non-gold-backed system and leverage itself into massive debt on behalf of its customers, students, and begin a parabolic rise in student enrollments. It took about 4 years to figure out the economic scheme and the marketing of every child to go to college. It took about 4 years to figure out that was the magic words to use and to put it into place. 4 years. Was it a freshman that was there in 71 that figured it out by the time he graduated? I don't know. It's just kind of interesting to me that, and again, if you look at a graph of college enrollments, you'll see in 71, they're still coming up a little bit, but about 75, and they just go parabolic all the way up to current day where they started declining. Interesting. Well, why? Because you can get money to go to school and pay it back later. And I want you to think about any other time that you're told you can have the type of terms you get with a college loan, and then answer for me if it's the kind of deal that you would generally take. Let's say it's a furniture company advertising a Labor Day sale. Come in today and you can get this entire suite for $4,800 with no payments due until next year. When you hear that, I probably shouldn't do this. I probably shouldn't do this. Now, what if they said, you won't have to make a payment for 4 years? Wait a minute. Wait a minute. What's going on here? It's a money game. Now, I know that equating like a living room suite of furniture with a 4-year advanced degree doesn't seem to make a lot of sense on the surface. And I'm not making a direct comparison. I'm just saying that when you look at financing something and you don't have to worry about paying it back for at least 4 years, at least. Some people stay in college for 5 or 6 years. Or they get their bachelor's and they say, well, I'm going to get my master's even though I have no experience. There's people staying in college for 6, 8 years on loans and don't pay a dime back until they step out the other side of it. Now, in the age of your grandparents and parents, the boomers and the Xers, this relatively worked out well. Because as those numbers of enrollments were going up, they were still a smaller percentage. There was more people didn't go to college than did go to college. Inflation actually worked for you at this point because you had your degree that you locked in a cost for 5 years ago, and then 5 years of inflation eating against your debt. So more and more people went to college, and as it worked, more and more people were converted into believers. And they raised their children with Johnny, Debbie, study hard, get good grades, and go to college. Everybody should go to college. And every time somebody came on TV or the radio or to a high school auditorium or any place like that and uttered the most ridiculous phrase that we have ever told children with a straight face, I'm not saying we never say anything dumber, like, gender is a construct of the mind. That's pretty stupid. But we're talking longevity here. We've been saying this shit for 50 years. Everybody should go to college. Every child should go to college. If you step back from the emotion of that for a quarter of a second, you realize that it's the most bald-faced lie on planet Earth. There is no world in which that is a true statement. It doesn't make any sense at all. But we marketed it so hard that we literally have kids that don't want to go to college, that feel like their life will be an absolute trash disaster if they don't, stressing out and going neurotic, eating freaking pills to get themselves through their high school exams so they can go to the right college or their life's going to be shit, and there's somebody that would be better off working on trucks or a chef in a restaurant. Right? Now, you don't know that. Well, I don't know that. No, but you don't either. Whether it's you don't know that about your own kid, you definitely don't know it about somebody else's kid. Are there people that make great chefs? Are there people that are great mechanics? Are there people that do both of those jobs and love them? Okay, then somebody's got to do it. And somebody wants to do it. I know people who are right now knocking down $120 to $150 a year with about a year of experience welding. They had to invest in their own equipment and all, but they're out in the oil fields and things like that, in the gas fields, and they're just fixing shit as it breaks, right? And they're making really great money. Do I want to do that? Absolutely not. Do some people love a life like that? Yes. Are some people too stupid to go to college, just to be blunt? Do some people just not have the intellectual capacity to go? Yes. We all know them. And some of them went. Many of them went. And when you talk to them, you're like, I cannot believe you have a degree. You talk like an absolute moron. I listened to a bunch of videos about this while I was working kind of in the background today. And the number of people that they focused on, these students who are affected by colleges being closed and telling you their story. Why does every single one of them make statements as though they're asking a question? Do you know how stupid you sound when you're like, well, I guess that's the way it's supposed to work. I can't even do it. You know what I'm talking about, though. Like where you want to go, are you asking me or are you telling me here? Every one of them. They all sound the same way. You know why? Because they're always second-guessing everything because they're like, judge me, rate me. We've brainwashed them into this bullshit. No, they don't all belong there. No. And so what happened is the enrollment numbers take off from 1974, 1975 on. Inflation ate away at those loans, and schools decided something right then. Growth at all cost. Every single professor felt they were underpaid and wanted a raise, right? All the students wanted a new quad or a new, building over here or a new facility there. And kids started making decisions about what college to go to based on their lifestyle at the college versus their education. So the only way you can play that game in a world where free money is being doled out to your customers, who will then spend the money with you. They incur the debt and you incur no risk. You understand that? Like, the lender incurs some risk, but it's highly mitigated for student loans. But if I'm Jack Spirko University and you come to my college and you flunk out and you spend $40,000 with me, I'm under no obligation at all, infinity, to give you one penny of your money back. I just keep it and I go on with my life. And I give a raise to my faculty department heads. So that became the model. Well, you know what? They can borrow the money. We'll just grow the student body and we will just give people raises and we'll just raise tuition to compensate for it. And that's what every college did, because when you have a system like this, that is basically a captive bubble of pre-qualified prospects being sent to you for conversion, then you have to do what your competitors do. Instead of looking at this as a college problem, I'm looking at it as a business person. I'm doing a business analysis on it. If you give me any sector like that, I can tell you that whatever one entity finds as a winning strategy, when there's really not a competition at that point for body count, there's so many available that everybody's just going to do what everybody else does. So that was what the model became. Raise prices, build, grow, recruit. All right. So then the problem became, sooner or later, when you start having like 60, 70% of kids at least try college, between, going to community colleges, to high-end universities, everything in between, you don't get 60, 70% going to college and graduating, but you start getting 60, 70% of the student body that has any hope of getting in going. Then all of a sudden, everybody starts looking at each other going, this isn't working out the way we planned. There is a limit to how many students we can get. There is a limit to how much money they're willing to borrow. Yeah. So they said, I know what we'll do is we will grab onto this DEI shit, right? Before it even existed, before it was a term, that there are these programs for underprivileged demographics. We'll go out and recruit them. We'll tell our alumni we're doing good and ask for more alumni money for these minority programs, etc. And we'll lobby the government, because politicians love to say they're helping the undervalued or underprivileged, And so we'll just create another money faucet. And they pretty much were able to do that. But the problem became twofold. One, most of the people qualified to go to college, no matter their race or their sex or religion or whatever, already were going. And now you're trying to pull in a bigger hunk of the potential pie, right? You're not trying to grow your market organically. You have a fixed number of prospects. And now you're trying to grow with that fixed number of prospects that are all being chopped up and going to different schools. So what do you do? How does Jack Spirko University grow his student body when people are going to Harvard and Yale and Princeton and they're like, screw Jack, he's almost as expensive as they are, and I can get into Harvard, so I'm going to Harvard. How do I grow my student body at that point? Well, I start lowering my admissions standards, right? That way we can go out and get all of these underprivileged demographics, because many of them, they're not really underprivileged. They're undereducated. They're not qualified to do college level work. They can't pass an admissions exam, up to the point where we now have it's something like half the colleges in the country don't require ACT or SAT scores when you apply to get in. Many of them, they'll just take anybody, because what also happens is the Harvards, the Princetons, and the Yales, big money schools, as long as they got money to fund the people that are disadvantaged, they'll lower their shit too. In fact, they'll play both sides. Oh, we're lowering it, but only for these groups over here. Now, what does that do? Again, I'm coming at this not attacking education, even though it's easy to do. I'm coming at this as a business analyst. So you have these giant, prestigious, let's call them top brands of schools, and they start sucking from a declining population overall going into the lesser schools, the mid brands and lower brands, right? Well, then what happens? Well, if I can get into Harvard, why am I going to go to Jack Spirko's Joe Spooty University, right? Like, I'm going to go to Harvard. I'm going to go to Yale. I'm going to go to Columbia. I'm going to go to Berkeley. So the big fish start eating the little fish, just like any other business. Like, you can only fend off the rules of business in any place where a lot of money is involved for so long. So while this is all going on, they also, again, they focus more on the comfort of the student than the academic rigor. It is more important that we have a safe space where children that are actually adults can sit in a closet and pet a puppy and get a hug and have a balloon or whatever the hell it is. But it wasn't just that complete stupidity. It was, how do we make them not feel offended by anything while telling them to be offended by everything? You notice that? Have you noticed that? Like, the whole goal of a college now seems to be, let's make sure they're not offended. Let's make sure nobody's stressed, nobody's offended, nobody's upset, nobody has their apple cart turned over, nobody's deep-seated beliefs, unless they're Christians, are challenged, right? Christians and right-wingers, that you can tweak those guys. Everybody else, we need to make sure that nothing upsets them. We need to make sure nothing offends them. We need to take everything that's ever said and done on this university and put it through a filter that says, will this offend somebody? And at the same time, let's tell them and teach them and train them to be offended by everything. Gee, what could go wrong? What could go wrong indeed? And so that desire for student comfort created an environment that just flat out is not conducive for learning. It's not. And we also have, I guarantee you, if you dig hard enough, you'll find hard proof. There are kids, I keep saying that, young adults being given passing grades that should not be getting them. Because if you flunk out, you don't stay in school. You see how that works? And when people leave college, by the way, they almost never come back. It's something like 70% that drop out, never go back. And that number's higher among young men, which we'll get to in a minute, because the men are driving this decline heavily. Now, while all this was going on, the schools are just churning out degrees, right? And I'm not even saying that, most of them aren't earned. Let's say most of them are earned. But you have a degree in, I don't know, communications, marketing and communications, which could be a great degree, but a lot of them aren't, right? They're not statistically, mathematically based degrees in marketing that allow a person to be a good market analyst, for instance. They're very surface level bullshit that you could probably learn better from some online marketing guru how to actually market than what these people come out with, because half their degree has nothing to do with marketing. I've hired them. Don't tell me otherwise. I know. I hired a guy. He was a great web developer. He learned out of a Sam's book. Literally learned how to do basic graphics design. Then he got another Sam's book on how to do PHP and MySQL and a few other command languages. And then he got a great job. And then I stole him from my competitor. Right. But I was like, he worked for me like a year, and we were talking about this, and he's like, yeah, I had a degree. I'm like, you have a degree? Because you hired me. You don't know I had a degree. I said, I hired you because of your resume. My degree's on my resume. I'm like, where is he? He's like, the end. I'm like, I didn't get to the end. I got to the fact that you work for one of my biggest competitors in the market, and I got to your portfolio of the sites that you have developed, and I didn't care about your education. And then we had the conversation about, the Sam's Club thing. So those kind of people, they came out into this place where they might be smart, but their degree wasn't really relevant to what they were talented at. And on top of it, there's a surplus of degrees. Like, when I was in high school, a degree meant something. When someone had a degree, it meant something. It didn't mean as much as they told you it meant, but it did matter because something has value because it's rare. Right? Like, what is the value of a high school diploma right now? For all the talk to kids, you got to graduate high school. What does it actually do for you? And people would say, well, there's certain jobs you can't even get if you don't have a high school diploma. How many of the jobs you've ever had in your life where they said, what high school did you go to? And you wrote down diddly do high school. Do you think some Karen in human resources actually picked up the phone? And if it was me, right, and if I was still in a workplace at 51 years of age, like, where'd you go to high school? Pottsville, Pennsylvania, Pottsville area high school. And you think some Karen in human resources picks up the phone, calls Pottsville area high school and says, we want to talk to you about a student of yours from 1989. Did they actually graduate? No, that doesn't happen. It doesn't. So if a person's willing to just say, yeah, I went to high school, like that all goes away anyway. My point is, even if you did, even if you got your little high school diploma, I don't even know where mine is. And you when you go to your job interview and they say, you know, what are your credentials? I went to high school yet, and you hand it to them. What do they say? So what? I would actually think that would make you less likely to get hired, right? I think actually the person that says, no, I never finished high school and I don't care, here's my resume, is more likely to get a job than somebody that brings their high school diploma with them to a job interview, especially if they have any track record of their career. The point is, it doesn't really mean anything because everybody has one. Now, if you want to go to college, I guess you need one, and they might actually check. But the reality is it doesn't do anything for you because everybody has one. That's how college, like a bachelor's in some random bullshit. So what? So what? I had a client back in early 2000s for our recruiting firm that he had on this thing for customer service representatives answering the phone, reading a script. They needed a bachelor's degree. So what the hell do these people need a bachelor's degree for, especially for what you're paying? He goes, everybody has one. If we hire one of those people, at least we know that they can finish what they started. Okay, so that's what $15,000 a year for 4 years back then got you. An employer that said you could finish what you start. And I guarantee you that this firm was not checking to make sure all these people actually had degrees either. It just doesn't mean what people say that it means. The value of it went down because the quality of the degree went down. The cost of the degree went up, and the number of people with degrees multiplied. We have people right now, they're hiring entry-level positions. They want a degree and 6 years of experience for. Entry-level position, 6 years of experience. Why? Because you know what? You know when you won't see that? If we actually have a labor crisis, and there really is more full-time jobs than there are workers, for real, you won't see stupid shit like that anymore. The employers know what they can get. They know what they're shopping. It's a seller's market, I guess. I would say more of a buyer's market right now. The buyers are driving the decision. The hirers are driving the decision. And then the kids today have learned from watching parents and other siblings. Like that is the education that's actually happened. I'm not talking about the ones in college. I'm talking about the ones that didn't go. I'm talking about the ones that won't go right now, the ones that are graduating this year that won't go, the ones that graduated 2 years ago that won't go. They're pursuing something, anything else. And there's a reason. Their big brother, David, who's 29 years old, is schlepping lattes at Starbucks. And he's got a master's degree in literature or some shit. Right? And they're like, well, then I can go down there right now and get a job working at the same Starbucks that my brother works at, right? And there's a lot of people now that are like, they're not ready to go, but they're in, middle school, early high school, that their parents are not using their degree. And no matter how much their parents tell them how wonderful it is, they can look at mom and dad and go, well, you're doing okay, but you're not doing what your degree does. Or you're doing terrible with a degree. So why would I do this? So your overall enrollment's like the cliff is 25, but the enrollment decline has been going on aggressively since just before COVID. And it wasn't COVID. COVID, yes, made it worse. It was an aggravating circumstance, but that decline started in 2018. If you go back and look at it, right? And then here's who's really not going to college today. And it shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. Men. Young men are not going at anywhere near the rates that they were just 15, 20 years ago. And it doesn't surprise me at all. First of all, and I know I'm going to upset some women today, but this is just true. Men are infinitely more practical than women in the world of money. We just are. We are less emotionally led. That's why I think we benefit each other, by the way. I'm not saying one side's good and one side's bad. I'm saying we're different, in spite of what the TV and all these propeller heads that have their own industry collapsing on itself right now would tell you. There's differences between men and women. And I mean, I watch this show called Beat Bobby Flay on the app, and they play a commercial over and over there again. And this woman comes on there and goes, "Women are bad with money." And then there's this whole soliloquy about how it's all bullshit, that women are not bad with money. And the commercial ends with, "You have to save your money, women, because women are like 8 times more likely to end up in poverty and retirement than men." Well, maybe women are bad with money, at least the way that we've taught them to behave with money. Maybe they are bad. Men are more likely to say, "I will tough through this thing to spend less money." That's what I mean when I say that they're more practical. Men are more likely to make a decision based on nothing but the numbers rather than the emotion. And it doesn't surprise me that the vast majority, and I'll talk about it a little bit later, but the vast majority of the people featured in these segments on how we have to save higher education are women. And they're very likely, even when they say like, "Oh, I can't get a job with my degree. The school closed in the middle of my degree program. I had to try to find another place to go. It didn't work out. I ended up losing money. I owe a bunch of money." And they'll still say, when you ask them, "Well, would you do it again?" "Well, the friends that I've made," like, see, guys are more likely to go, "Bullshit, no." Right? I'm just saying that's how we are. And Erin is saying her husband is all spreadsheets. Exactly. I make decisions when it involves a lot of money. And when you get into like, 4 or 5 figure digits, right? Yeah, that's a lot of money. I'm going to make a decision with a spreadsheet. And men have a tendency to be pretty good at whipping up pseudo spreadsheets in our heads. Like we go to Costco for a big supply run or something, and I'll look at the cart and I'll go $520, and they'll roll it up, and I'll be within like 2%, 3% of the total. And I was not tracking the whole time, rounding up or anything. I just kind of look at it and factor in inflation and everything, and can throw a number out like that. So men are pretty quick in their head to go, "Wait a minute, 20 grand a year, 4 years, 80 grand, doing something I really don't want to do to get a job that I don't even know what it is. I don't think I want to do that." And women are more likely, see, women, the other thing about women, you guys are pleasers, right? Women want to please daddy. They want to please mommy. They want to please teacher. They want to please everybody. They're constantly evaluating themselves from that viewpoint. In other words, what I'm saying is you are too critical of yourself. Like, men are more likely to go, "You don't like me, don't look at me." Women will spend an hour and a half to go to the convenience store and back home. Like, men are just like, whatever. Like, "I don't smell that bad. I'm going to go down and pick up a 6-pack. Not a woman. We're different. Again, that is not bad. It just is. And so men are already predisposed to make a financial back of the napkin calculation and go, not for me. Men are also more likely to be willing to do many of the well-paying trades that are out there with, apprenticeship programs and things like that: welding, pipe fitting, electrical, data communications, programming, etc. Being a garbage man, right? You notice, like, all these feminists are like, "We don't have enough women in these fields." They never say there's not enough females, mining coal, mining iron ore, working as deckhands on ships. See, there's this whole plethora of jobs that, they kind of are available to women, but in general, women don't want to do them. And on top of this, what are they doing to young men in the education world? Well, they're treating them like girls. They're feminizing them. They have them sitting in circles when they're in kindergarten, feelings circles and shit, right? They have them in this complete compliance mode. You know what a little boy should be doing at 5, 6, 7? Building shit, knocking it down, rebuilding it, knock it down again, rebuild it, knock it down again. Tell me what little boy does it build a whole bunch of shit with a pile of blocks, and the first thing it does when he's done building it, knock that shit down. What's the little girl want to do? And again, this isn't bad or good. This is just different. She wants to save it. We can't save it, honey. It's in the middle of the floor. I mean, I've dealt with this with my grandkids, right? They're very proud of the thing, and they want to keep the thing, and the little boy wants to break the thing. You know, kids in sixth, like 5, 6 years, 7, even 7 years of age, they really do not need to be focused on academics very much at all. They need to be learning how to deal with each other and deal with a situation if they're in an educational environment of simply being there. This is what the Japanese do different than us. Japanese kids learn almost nothing about academics for the first 3 years of school. They almost exclusively learn how to behave, how to be good to each other, things like that. Now, I'm not saying we should do exactly that. I'm just saying that there are other ways to approach this. And nobody looks at the Japanese and goes, boy, they're an uneducated society. You want to, you know, people I said that probably just bristled. You want to put our reading and math and English, like language and math scores up against the Japanese? Do you really? If their method's so bad, right, of delaying that academia, and so that the child is at a more appropriate mental state when you start forcing knowledge into them that they're maybe not all in on having? Do you really want to compare U.S. language and math skills against Japanese language and math skills at a testing level for high school graduates? Does anybody want to do that? Probably not. So maybe, just maybe, they're onto something with that. Now, and again, it's men. It is hugely men. Now, what is the solution? From the geniuses who caused the problem, right? Once again, we turn to the people who fucked it up to fix it. I'm just saying maybe we should stop doing that. Maybe we should stop letting people that cause problems tell us how to fix the problems that they made. But they're the ones in charge of this whole industry, and it is an industry, so what are they telling us to do? Well, first of all, the big name schools don't care. They don't care. UC Berkeley doesn't care. Harvard doesn't care. Princeton doesn't care. Columbia University doesn't care. Any place that has a brand that when you say the brand, people are like, oh, their ears open, their eyes open. Like any brand of a university that goes on a resume that makes the person that's screening resumes stop, doesn't care. And it's not just the super high level schools. It's like the big, well-known state schools. I guarantee you, University of Florida doesn't give a shit right now about this, right? Baylor in Texas doesn't care. Texas State University probably doesn't care. Texas A&M doesn't care. These are names, especially in certain disciplines and fields. If that name is on your resume, you're getting an interview. Those schools don't care. At least for now, that's still the case. And they don't care because they just suck from the next level down in the system. So their solution is, we'll pay lip service to this, but we really don't care because we're the big fish. We're eating the little fish, right? In the non-competitive world of collegiate athletics, it's competitive on the basketball court and the football court. And of course it is for recruiting students, but in the end, there's room for everybody. Turns out there's not. And you can only suppress this natural instinct for so long before the bigger fish will start leveraging its fins on the smaller fish and eating them. So they don't care. Now, what everybody else says is, we need more diversity. We need more diversity. So your number one demographic that's giving you the middle finger and telling you to go screw yourself in the butt with a cheese grater, right? It's like, I've had enough of you. Go screw. You're saying, yeah, you're right. Goodbye, good riddance. We don't want you, right? Men in particular and white guys and Asian guys, they have no use for you anymore. They don't. And people get mad when I talk like that. Prove me wrong. Go look at the admissions policies that they have and tell me I'm wrong. So we need more diversity. So what that means is we need to make things more approachable to women, is what they're saying. They want to further feminize the higher education system. Well, that'll help you get, like, there's nothing being done to say, wait a minute, this massive demographic of men is the number one demographic refusing to put themselves into debt to do business with us anymore. See, this is what I say. I'm different than most of these people in academia, because as a business person, right? As a business person, if you have a traditional customer base, and I don't mean traditional as, you know, like some broader term. I mean, for your company, these people are traditionally your customers. And one of the biggest blocks of them starts telling you to go screw and won't do business with you anymore. The natural thing to do is to say, what did we do wrong? How have we let down this customer base that's been so strong for us? What did we do? Let's look inward at ourselves. That's what a business does, not academia. Academia sits in the same place emotionally and mentally as the mainstream media and the government. It can't possibly be our fault. There's no way any of this is our fault. White guys are just a bunch of big, stupid, brain-dead morons. Maybe they are better off driving a garbage truck or welding some metal together. They're just too stupid. They're probably all a bunch of smelly Walmart shopping Trump supporters. I know the solution. Let's bring more women into school. Okay, here's a bunch of problems with that. There's still only so many of them. Many of them are making the same calculation because even though they are more likely to be emotionally led into a decision, they also are pretty good at math. Okay? And they're starting to do the math and go, wait a minute, no, this doesn't make sense too. But the other side of it is there are so many professions that we actually need. We need engineers. I'm not saying a woman can't be an engineer. I'm telling you, if you take 100 guys at random, you just walk around the street and you say, are you between 18 and 25? And anybody says yes, here's $1,000 to participate in our study. Will you do it? Sure. And you take both sides, equal numbers of male and female in that demographic, and sit them down and not just say, do you want to be an engineer? You give them a test to determine if they have the aptitude to be something like a mechanical or organic or chemical engineer, right? Way more of the men are going to be qualified to pursue that degree. And then if you ask them, have you ever considered pursuing an engineering education? A significant higher number of men will say yes than women. Doesn't mean they can't. Means they don't freaking generally, as a demographic, like it. Yeah? But they can do anything, but they don't want to. They don't want to. And a lot of guys don't. I don't want to. I never did. So I'm not saying that all men do or all women don't. What I'm saying is the preponderance of people for that profession, yeah, they're going to be men. Aeronautical engineers. We need a few of those that know what they're doing. Boing. That's what I call it, Boeing, because it's like boing, 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 right? The plane bounces out of the air, drops freaking wheels on cars. We have planes dropping their freaking landing wheels on cars at airports, but we need DEI. You see where this problem goes. This is the idiocracy in motion. You start having to lower standards for your engineering school because you don't have enough engineers to keep your school going. This is where we are. Erin says she doesn't trust a woman engineer. I would. I'll judge everybody individually there. I'm not going to say that. I'm just saying when you cull from the averages, there's a whole shitload of really important to society roles that, like, you know, a lot of men want to do and very few women want to do. And that's both in academics and in the trades. So you're driving men out while you're having shortfalls in these key critical areas. And instead you're padding everything with fluff, and people are getting degrees in nonsense and bullshit. And you might as well call it nonsense and bullshit. And here's why. If I am Jack Spirko University and you come to me and you get a degree in gender studies and somebody else gets a degree in marketing, and it's a good degree in marketing, we go deep into analysis. It is in the current system, it is as weighted toward degree specifics as I can legally make it and still get you a loan. And I got another person who gets a degree in mechanical engineering, and I got another person who gets a degree in basket weaving, art appreciation, something like that. All of you pay the same amount of money to me. My marketing professors and my engineering professors cost me more money. But I make the same money on all four of you, whether you get a job or not. There is no risk sharing whatsoever. So why wouldn't I just throw as many degree people as I can get into this pot and just grift as much money as I can? Now, if I'm a top school, I need enough engineering students to make my engineering school highly rated. But I don't need it to be that big. I just need my brand to be good so that the person who gets a basket weaving degree has that brand. That's how this whole game is being played right now. Soon you're going to hear this cry. It's already starting. You're not going to be surprised when I say this, but it hasn't really hit home for this specific problem yet. White supremacy and racism. The schools that are going broke right now are small private institutions, and some of your lesser state public institutions are going under as well. There's a lot of private schools. And when I say that, you might think, oh, these are these schools they turned up in the last 20, 30, 40 years. For-profit financial institutions. No, those guys are actually doing okay. They have really good marketing departments, and they can expand and contract their cost side much easier than traditional universities. No, some of these schools have been around for over 100 years. And they are beginning to implode, and schools are beginning to merge, right? And so when you're merging that way, you're not merging for growth. You're merging for collapse. I saw that happen at the high school level. The year I graduated high school, the number of graduates in my graduating class was about 25% higher than it would have been if I graduated with everybody that I was a junior with, but not a senior with. Because a local school called St. Clair got so small that they moved St. Clair into Pottsville. And so 25% of our graduating class were like newbies. And that is 1989, 1990 in the coal region of Pennsylvania. That collapse was already on. The populations leaving these places, etc. Colleges have been more immune to it because people go to college other than where they live, including a lot of these private institutions. But as these smaller schools close, that's how they're going to, because what's going to happen? This is like the worst heroin addiction ever. The whole sector, the universities, the people that make the books, the learning materials, the giant corporations that have, contracts for 80% of the schools for janitorial supplies. I mean, this is a massive multi-trillion-dollar industry, and they are spoiled. They have had basically free money being handed out since 1974. They don't want it to go away. So anything they can do to pull money out of that big giant gravy train, they'll do it. So what works really well right now? Racism. I'm going to tell you, by next year, you're going to see articles coming out. Meet the students from the small institutions destroyed by white supremacy. So that'll be the next game if they're going to play with you. It's systemic racism causing these failed colleges to fail. And no one will say, wait a minute, like, how many people that went to that school are doing really well in life? Right? How much do they pay versus how much do they earn? That's a fair question. You notice you're not even supposed to ask that question anymore? You're not supposed to ask that? How much do people that go to this school pay versus how much do they earn, especially if we take away the elite 10% of students that are in your high-end programs? If we take your aggregate average student body, money in versus lifetime earnings, what are they? It's like you offended somebody by suggesting that anybody do that analysis at this point. Schools will just continue to raise tuition. And the other thing that they're going to do is they're starting to do more and more remote learning. They got to get that kind of kickstarted under COVID. But they're charging as much for remote learning as they are for in-person learning, even though it can be delivered at zero real cost. It doesn't make any sense because you're buying the brand. You're buying the brand of, I have a degree from Joe Spudi University. I have a degree from Harvard University. I have a degree from UC Berkeley. So they're trying to grift money out of basically website-based education. And I'm talking pre-recorded shit here too. Like everything's like, it's like for my grandkids when they do their stuff online. There are people at Acellus that can help, but mostly it's recorded. They do it. The system grades it. We kind of check up on our side to make sure they're doing what they're supposed to do and not cheating. It's fairly automated. And, for what we get, I'll pay $75 a month for that per kid. But I'm not paying $25,000 a year for it. And that's what they're doing now. Now they're charging as much for remote education as they are for in-house learning. And there's constant lobbying now, and it will only get worse. Loan forgiveness, student loan forgiveness, student loan forgiveness. Who are you to forgive a loan with my money? Right? But they keep pushing this, and it's a winning argument. I know that many of you don't think that it is, but it is a winning argument because most people today have student loan debt or they love somebody that does. So it benefit people love things that benefit them, even if they know in their hearts this is wrong. I took the loan, I should pay the loan back. And a lot of people feel like they have no choice. There's a lot of people out there right now. They went to college, they have a degree, or they don't, but they owe 20, 30. I think the average amount that's owed right now by students who are no longer in school is $38,000. $38,000 when you're working at Starbucks making lattes with your degree in English literature, it seems like I will never be able to pay this off. And they pay the minimum payments, and 10 years in, they owe more than when they started. You'd think they'd learn to do math in college, but they don't, I guess. Oh, now, let me ask you a few questions with this all in mind that we've talked about, because hopefully you see that this is happening, and it's only going to get worse. What is the impact to a small town with a private college with about a 10,000 student and faculty head count going under? What happens to a town where this occurs? You know, I was years and years ago, so it's been 1993. I ended up stuck on Thanksgiving Day in a place called McPherson, Kansas. There's not a lot there, but it is kind of a thriving little community. And we were bored. Me and my buddy were stuck there together. So we took a walk. We walked about 6 miles round trip to get some beer because it turned out we were in a dry county. And at least we were going to salvage Thanksgiving by watching the Cowboys game. That's the one. That's the ice ball with Leon Lett in the terrible play. That one, right? So we're like, how is this even a place? And as we're walking, to where we could actually get to a convenience store and buy beer, we see this McPherson College. And it was a fairly large private college. And we talked to one of the, we were bored. We got stuck there Friday too, before we could finally get a car and get out of there. So we ended up like Friday after Thanksgiving going in and talking to one of their admissions people or something, just bullshitting them and saying, yeah, we're considering coming here. We had no idea. $14,000 a year to go to school for a 2-year private college in McPherson, Kansas in 1993. And I remember thinking to myself, if I was going to go to college, it wouldn't be here. This is insanity. That's a lot of money per student. Thousands of students, $14,000 a year. Jake says violence goes down. Probably not. Usually, Jake, when communities start to collapse, violence goes up. I know what you're talking about, the rowdy, raucous nature of college students and bars and whatever. But it is a tremendous blow. I mean, I've been to little towns all over this country. Some it's colleges closing. Some of it's some major warehouse industry or something collapsed. Or there's a lot of different ways that it's happened. But I've seen towns that are pretty much like you go through downtown and there's trees growing through some of the buildings. But you can look at what's there and say, just 10 years ago, this was something. There was something here. So we have this tremendous, and I've been forecasting it for years, and it's about to really start happening. It has been happening, but the pace is about to pick up of small communities all over the country as some of these colleges implode, coming into financial ruin. I don't care about a lot of the people inside the system that are the parasites of the system. I really don't. They have milked this bullshit for so long. There is so much grift. There's so much. Let me tell you about some of the grift. Here's an example of grift. This is not small town. In Maryland, if you are a public school teacher, when you get out of college, you got your bachelor's degree. You need a bachelor's degree to teach second grade, a parent. So you go teach second grade. You're teaching 2 + 2 is 4. 2 × 5 is 10. Hopefully you're teaching that, because I don't know. Maybe a gender pronoun changes multiplication. Who knows? But you're doing your job. Everybody loves you. The kids love you. The parents love you. Principal loves you. You're good to go. You think you could do that job for the rest of your life now. No, you have 5 years to obtain a master's degree. Or in Maryland, you lose your license to be a school teacher. Maryland, where they just hired some illegal aliens to be school teachers with no degree. Not making it up. If you are a degreed professional who did everything the right way, you now have to get a master's degree. Now, where's the grift in that? Well, they don't pay for it. There's grants and all kinds of things that pay for them to get their master's degree. Who do you think's behind that? I would think Maryland universities are behind that. I know we can't grow enrollments, so let's grow re-enrollments. Let's create a system that requires these people to increase their educational credentials, even though they don't need to, in a system where it's funded from other people. So there's no reason not to do it. You're going to lose your job and you don't have to pay for it. And then they can turn around and bitch and tell you how hard their life is because they spent all summer going to school for free instead of being on vacation for 12 weeks the way they're supposed to be, and they're a hero that doesn't wear a cape. That's a grift all around. I guarantee you the teachers' unions were in on this too. They're ensuring their own future, plus they're getting degree enhancement for their members at no direct cost to their members. So everybody wins except the people paying the bills. That would be the taxpayers, most of whom don't have these fancy degrees. What a great grift. There's just grift everywhere. Here's another question for you, though. Why would a young person go $50,000 to $100,000 in debt today for a degree when most likely they'll never use it? I know I'm not supposed to ask that question. I understand that in question really infuriates people. I get it. But this is, if I was 18, 19-year-old kid today and somebody was advising me to go to college and I didn't know, like, I want to be an engineer, I want to be a doctor, I want to do something that really requires this rigor. If I don't have any direction toward one of those things, and I know that more than 70% of people that do what I'm being told to do end up with a job that their degree does not need to have the job, and I know that at the end of 4 years of doing something I really don't want to do, right? Sitting in a classroom, right? Like, I don't really want to do this. And the best I can hope for is that maybe I'll get a degree that maybe will give me a job that maybe will make my life a little better. But at the end of it, I'm going to be $50,000 to $100,000 or more in debt. What can you possibly say to tell me, oh, Jack, you should do this? And I think with a straight face, there isn't one. There isn't one. Okay. Getting rid of people that are proselytizing in the chat telling us we have 55 days until the end of the world. No, we're not doing that. Anyway, moving. He must have a degree, probably from Harvard. Then I wanted to ask about this. Why do so many graduates, when faced with reality, still say they would do it again? Why are there so many people that get interviewed? Well, what do you do now? You know, and they do. Let's like, I know I'm beating up on the Starbucks thing, right? You know, I don't know. They work for a cabinet company in their marketing department, and they have a degree in human resources or something, right? Like, it's just, there's no correlation between the degree and the job. And you even ask them. I see this in these interviews all the time. Well, could you have gotten the job you have without your degree? Yeah. My ex-fiance had 2 degrees, one in finance and one in economics from Texas Tech. This is way pre-Dorothy, right? Before I knew Dorothy existed. The job she has, she's got a great job. Great job. So I think she still has it. I don't really know. But she did. She had a great job. You know what? It was even with a financial firm. A big-time financial firm, like a financial firm that like manages the money of like players for the Dallas Cowboys. You know what? She didn't need a degree to get that job. She's even in her field, and the degree was unnecessary to have the job. She learned all that she knows from doing the job, not from the degree. Might have helped with aptitude. How do you justify this to people? And then when you ask these people, but would you do it again? Oh, and she would, I guarantee you, she would have been like, oh yeah, I'd do it again. The friends I made. And it does seem to be more women than men that talk like this. At least it just seems like they more are likely to interview women and ask them this question. I don't see a lot of guys being asked this question. Maybe it's because they get a different answer and it's not the one that they want to hear. Right? Like, would you do this again? Well, yeah. But you just said you owe $80,000. And you said you have no idea how you're going to pay it. And you say that you don't even really want to pursue a career in your field of study. No, not really. and you're making okay money but not great money at a job where you didn't need the degree in the first place? Yeah. And you would do it again. But the friends I made, the experience, you know what would be better? Like taking some like extended vacations when you're 18, 19, 20 years old. You'll get more out of it, and you won't have debt for the rest of your life over it. And even if you do, it'll be credit card debt, and you can go bankrupt, and in 7 years, you're back to par. Many people would be ahead with, I don't advise that, but many people would be ahead with that approach than having a student loan debt that will follow you to retirement. They will dock your Social Security if they have to make sure that you pay it. There's no way out of it, right? Why do you guys think? I'd like to hear from some of y'all in the live chat right now. Why do you think so many people answer that question that way? I'll tell you what I think, and I'd like to hear what you think. I think it's mostly because people that get through college are pleasers. They're pleasers. Not all of them, but by and large, they're more pleaser type people. They're more likely to be the person that wants to finish a thing just because they started it, just because they're supposed to. And they know the answer they're supposed to give. And as pleasers, they give the answer they're supposed to give. I think many of them would actually fail a lie detector test. And I think probably half of them would pass it. And I think even the half that pass, it's not true, but if you believe you're being honest, you'll pass a lie detection test, right? If you believe you're being honest, even if you're not. And I think a lot of these people, they just, and, you know, Husk says family. I don't know about that. I mean, you're talking about somebody, you know, in a little YouTube documentary being asked by a total stranger if they would do it again and saying yes. I think that there's this desire to please, to the desire, like, think about the person who goes through 4 years of college and graduates with good grades. Like, they have lived in a system of, you ask me a question, I give you the right answer, I get a star. You ask me another question, I give you the right answer, I get a star. And I think this is part of why they generally are horrible employees. Like, the last thing I ever wanted to be was somebody's employer straight out of college, because they have no idea how to function. They have to relearn how to function. Like, I'm going to give you a task and I'm going to go away. I'm not going to stand there and watch you. And I know there's a lot of independent learning or whatever in college, but there's this constant reinforcement of there's a right answer and a wrong answer. When I tell you to develop a marketing campaign for a product line, there's not a right and wrong answer. If there was a right and wrong answer, I would look it up in the book and say, this will be our campaign. It requires an independent thinking analysis. Like, what's going on right now? What is pricing like right now? What finance opportunities are there for our customers? Who's the main demographic buying from us? What's the primary growth demographic? We could be like, all of that has to factor into that. And that person, even though they have a degree in marketing from SMU, by the way, the person I'm talking about now, can't do it. Can't do it because they want to know what I think. I think you're not done yet. And when you're done, you should bring me a complete presentation. And I guarantee you not everything in it is going to survive. But by you going and doing this thing that I've asked you to do to your fullest ability, and you come back in and we all look at it together, and people with more experience than you are going to take what you've gleaned and advance it. But you have to do that first. Well, they don't want to do it. It's very uncomfortable. Now they know that me and like 2 other members of my staff are going to talk shit about what they did, even if we like half of it. We're not going to like, well, they can't stand hearing that they were wrong. It takes people 2 or 3 or 4 years in a good work environment to get that out mostly, and it can still be a problem. I never, ever hired anybody straight out of college. Just wouldn't do it. You have to have had some relevant experience, not just because I need you to have the experience. I don't want to reprogram you. Like, I need you reprogrammed by the real world. You have lived in a fake artificial cocoon bubble for the last, 16, 17 years of your life. You've been in a bubble. Pop! Go on Scooter, get some experience, and we can talk. Now there's exceptions. People that work all the way through, that would be different, but most don't. They don't. It's actually really sad right now. We have people coming out with like master's degrees and almost no relevant experience. They have exactly as much as they were forced to get in their program and not 1 second more. And then they wonder why nobody wants to hire them. They're looking for master's degree pay, and they have high school level experience. And we have a system that, I'm not blaming them. We have a system that has told them that's perfectly acceptable. You deserve master's level pay. And you notice the school that gave you the master's degree, it won't hire you, right? It won't hire you and give you master's level pay, right? Unless you're on track to be a professor there. That's about the only way. And they'll probably tell you need a PhD before that happens. Oh, God, what a mess, huh? Then why has the deck been so stacked against alternative solutions? Do you have an answer for that? Think about, what do companies actually need from workers today? And does it take 4 years to teach a person the things that employers really want in an employee? Does it? Like, what are the in-demand things right now? Where are the companies going? We can't get enough people. I'll tell you one place I know that they can't get enough people right now is plumbing. Every plumber I talk to, we cannot hire enough people. Cannot hire enough people. Especially the people that are doing like work with wells around here. Really hard to find good people. And they'll take somebody with no experience if the person has a track record of going to work, showing up on time. That's like, you can physically do the work and you have a track record of holding a job for a year. We'll give you a job, and in a year you'll be making 70, 80 grand a year with a skill set that's highly in demand. Why is there so much holding back solutions to those opportunities? And it's because it's a giant grift. And if you want to know how it's held back, it is with the freely available money they call student loans. There's requirements to access that money. And as that number that people can borrow keeps going up, the concept of competition from the outside gets completely obliterated. I can borrow $30,000, $40,000 a year to go to college, but I can't borrow any money at all to get 6 months of training that will make me suited to 70% of employers out there looking for hire somebody right now. I have to have a library. There's like, I don't want to get into it today, but if you want to check out like the work that Thaddeus Russell's doing and his, university that gives a fantastic education, but nobody can borrow any money to go to it. It's a protection racket. It really is. They don't want a solution because the solution is they're already dying. God forbid it became obvious that there were other pathways for people to take. They've spent 5 decades brainwashing the country that you're dog shit if you don't have a degree. And the person with the degree that can barely pay their bills is paying an electrician $600 on a Sunday to put a ceiling fan in his garage. I mean, we've all seen the meme where like there's this chick, I can't remember, her name was Call Her Karen. She has a PhD or whatever, and she works at Starbucks, and she thinks that Bill's an idiot because he went to trade school. And Bill ends up working for the electric company, and at the end of the meme, Bill shuts off Karen's electricity, right? They know that's reality, but they don't want to talk about it because they want enough of the grift to continue. Think about how big this is. I mean, just look up how many colleges, 4-year colleges there are in the United States. And then start doing some math on average tuition and just get that number. Then think about the books, the dorms, all of the associated industry, the sports merchandising, the sports programs, the janitorial services, the freaking landscape services, right? The fleets of vehicles these colleges have for their maintenance crews. They'll work on those vehicles. The food system and its tentacles into that. And then remember, it is the primary means by which the next professional class is conditioned to believe the authority of the existing paradigm. If you are a statist, right, and if you are an oligarch, then this is the greatest thing that's ever happened. 1971 till current day is the greatest thing's ever happened to you. The ability to completely shape and control mindsets, the ability for a company that makes poison to educate the next group of people that will educate farmers. Think about that, right? You're going to be an agronomist. Here, put this poison on the food. Okay. It's an incredible grift, and there's no impetus to let go of it. And here's my last question before we wrap up. would we ever create the system this way today if it didn't already exist? Let's say there was no college education system as we know it in America today. There was, I don't know, there was something else. And we were like, we don't have enough highly educated people to do these things. Would you ever build the system the way that it exists? Would you ever create a system that is predisposed to reinforce the mental illness of its customer? Because it is. Because the minute you get into this kind of accommodation mindset, I want them to be comfortable and happy. When they tell you that they really believe they're a dog, you have to say, okay, you're a dog. You can wear your collar and you can be walked around by your schoolmate. Colleges didn't used to be this way. Colleges were academically rigorous. You know, we think of those like where the radicals came from and all. There's some truth to that, but there was a hell of a lot of academic rigor, and there was a lot of ways to get thrown out. And it wasn't because you misgendered somebody. So my question is, if we wouldn't build the system today, the way that it is today, and I haven't had a single person here in live chat, right? Not a single person said that they would build it that way. If I'm missing somebody, tell me. Would you build the system we have today the way that it's built today? Okay. I bet I'm just gonna assume that no one is going to say we should. Then why are we trying to save it? Yes, I'm telling you it's a problem, but I'm not saying we need to save it. Not in its current form. It needs to be much smaller. It needs to serve a much smaller number of people who actually need a 4-year rigorous academic education to fulfill their goals in life. And it's not 60, 70, 80% of the population that qualifies as that. It just isn't, especially with a declining population overall. It's not. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make any sense at all. So why are we trying to save it? But all the barrels are out trying to save it. The media is trying to save it. The government's trying to save it. And it's because it benefits them. And it damn sure benefits the academic mega industry. And it damn sure benefits the mega corporations who control the minds of the youth through the education system. When you have companies that make pesticides funding the agricultural research at Texas A&M University, well, then son of a bitch, the graduates from Texas A&M University's programs for agriculture are going to come out and say pesticides are good. We need them. We won't be able to feed the world without them. It's in a massive system of control. So the problem we have is there is no plan for change in a system that is going to, it's not going to die, but its current form will die. There is no way that you continue to prop this thing up anymore. And there's a lot of things I say like it's 10 years out, or this is really a year out. It just starts to completely unravel. Completely unravel. There are more unemployed college graduates in our society today than any other time in history. There's more underemployed college graduates than any time in history. And there's more people deeply in debt that didn't even complete their degree and now know their degree is worthless than any time in history. And there's plenty of observation being done. And there's so many stupid people in college. Just stupid. Like I said, you watch these little media pieces on what's going on. And every single one of these college students they talk to is speaking like they're asking a question when they're making a statement. They sound dumber than a fence post. Way dumb. Like a fence post is way more useful. You see all of these things where people go around to these college campuses and ask them questions like, how many states are there? They don't know. I'm not saying they're all stupid. There's plenty of smart people that are going to college too. There's way too many stupid people per capita for the system to have any credibility at this point. And there is no plan to fix it. They don't know what they're going to do. The big schools just figured I'll keep eating. And the little schools feel doomed. And the middle-sized schools are looking for a survival strategy. This is not how you run an education system. It just isn't. It doesn't make any sense. Most people don't need to go. That's the first thing we have to do if we're going to fix this problem. We have to say the current system is good for these things, whatever they may be. You know, and it's the field of the STEM stuff. and it's a few other things that it's really good for. It's high-level business management. They're good at that. It's high-level financial analysis. They're actually pretty good at that too. There's a lot of things that it behooves a person to have that kind of rigorous academic background. Most people don't. Most people don't. And there's incredibly smart people who are not right for college. I'm not exactly a dummy. I'm really not. I'm kind of smart, actually. I don't like to talk about it that way, but I am. There's no way in hell that I was going to go to college. None. Because everything I looked at, I either didn't want to do the work to be able to get through, or I didn't want to do the work at the end of getting through. It didn't make it was like, I just don't want to do this. I don't want to, and the brainwashing didn't work on me. My given name, by the way, everybody calls me Jack. My given name is John. So I would get the whole, but John, you're so smart, especially teachers. You could do so much if you went to college. I had teachers that I'll help you with your application. I heard my one literature teacher, Miss Silverling. I remember her, a little bitty gal, kind of remind me of the No Capes lady from The Incredibles that came out years later. She was probably passed away by then. She kind of reminded me of that. I'll help you with your college apps. I'll give you a letter of recommendation. I can talk to some people over here. And I'm like, I don't want to do it. She was so disappointed because she was a believer that was the path. I didn't have the heart to tell her, but, you make $30,000 a year teaching high school in Pottsville. Why should I listen to you? I loved her as a person, but like career advice, I would never have said it. But that's what I was thinking, even at 17, like, why would I take career advice from you? You drive a Hyundai before they were cool, right? I mean, like, what? Why would I take your career advice? You're teaching English to morons in the coal region. And I'm not being fair to her. I don't really know why she was living there, but that's my mindset. Like, and there's so many people that are coming up against that. We need to realize where we're losing most of our jobs right now. Mid-level knowledge work. That's where we're losing most of our jobs right now. What do I mean by that? I mean that it's not shovel work, right? You're not just out there digging a ditch. You're not running a directional boring machine or a backhoe, right? You're behind a desk, but it does require a certain level of intelligence to do your job. Yeah? And if your job is something that kind of needs to be done, like somewhere in the whole machine, somebody makes decisions at the end of the line looking at some numbers, and you're part of those numbers somewhere in the system. And your work has to be proficient and accurate for that to happen for that company. That is a mid-level knowledge worker. Do you know what the perfect application of artificial intelligence is becoming? Mid-level knowledge workers. And what you're ending up with is not they're all going away, but one person is doing the work of 5 or 10. So that's going to get beaten up. Now, here's the bad news. Those are the jobs that most of these people get that they're happy to have. I work Monday to Friday, 8 to 5. I get my 3 weeks of PTO a year. I have a 401k and a medical plan. The job's not that hard. I got a boss that's like a diaper. He's always on my ass and full of shit, but overall, he's an all right guy. I kind of like the people I work with. I'm in the air conditioning. I can afford my house and my car, and I have some kids, and my life's pretty good. That whole Apple cart is getting wrecked in the next decade. And what are we churning out? More and more people that's their fit. Think about being a degreed professional whose degree is functionally useless. What does it qualify? It qualifies you for what I just said. It qualifies you to be a CSR and maybe someday run the telecom room, which you don't need a degree to do, but right now it's what it qualifies you for. That's all being replaced. It's either outsourcing overseas, right? More people probably speak English in India than the United States in total body count right now. Hey, I'm not talking per capita either. There's like 1.7 billion people in India. I bet there's more than 300 million people in India that speak English. They can do all the phone work, and they're getting better at it. They're getting good enough, especially when you add automation and AI into the mix, right? So You don't need the job, but it's the only thing that your job kind of gives you an edge, or your degree gives you an edge on getting. We need to completely change the way that we're doing things here. We're in a society that's transitioning to a new way of life, to a new reality. And people hate change. People hate change, and this is the big problem. Our young people have been made intellectually impotent in so many ways. And I'm not putting them down. I'm saying this is what the system's done to people. The advantage of a 19-year-old, 20-year-old, 21-year-old is a cocksure attitude. That's what they have going for them. I'll do it. I can figure it out. It'll be all right. I'll just go do it. They screw up 3 things for every one they get right, but it's worth it. It's worth letting them screw 3 things up as long as it doesn't bankrupt your company, because that one new innovation they come up with can radically transform everything. And you have a chance to take that person at that point in their career, if you get a hold of the right person there, and mentor them and form them into somebody who will be a captain in your industry and maybe run the company that you sell to them someday. That's the beauty of youthful exuberance. I'll just do it. Nothing can stop me. Life hasn't beat them up enough yet for them to realize that they can fail. So what do? We destroy it. We put them in a system that's constantly judging everything they say, everything they do, and telling them bullshit about pronouns. And basically telling, especially our young men again, and I know I sound like I'm beating this up, but it's true, you're bad for being a man. You need to be more like a woman. But we don't know what a woman is. Now, you could be one, or you could be more like one, but the one thing you can't be is toxically masculine. We need toxic masculinity, at least what they're calling toxic masculinity, in a society for it to function. We need a complete new way to handle this. We need to be developing our own educational systems that are focused on, when you're done with this is what you'll be able to do. My little humble contribution, my compost course, $40. When you're done, you can make the best compost you've ever made. That's simple. That's the whole promise, and it delivers. We can do that with anything. How to write computer programming. We can teach everything that people want to learn for the majority of jobs that exist in the world. I want to say that again. We can teach people almost anything they need to know to do the vast majority of jobs that there are in the world without a university system. Without it. We don't need it at all. Maybe we need some that are formal classroom environments. A lot of it can be done with remote learning. Some of it can be done with kind of a hybrid in between, but we don't need universities to do it. Now, what have universities brought us? They've brought us some wonderful things, but they've also brought us a generation, actually 2, enslaved by debt, with a complete compliance and obedience and pleasing mindset to the state and the systems. Do you think that if we didn't have the number of people that are put through that system, that we would have been anywhere as near as easy to control during COVID? Who were the majority of people that said that's some bullshit right there and I ain't doing it? Were they the people with degrees from some school in Massachusetts, or the dude with a welding torch in West Texas? Who was the one that said piss off, and who was the one that said govern me harder, daddy? You tell me. We need that. What made America so great? Anybody can take a shot at anything, and you can fail. That was the most important part. You can fail. If you want success to mean something, failure has to not just be an option. It needs to be probable. It needs to be probable that a person who tries something completely different will fail. Because it's not real otherwise. And when you have that meat grinder, and it is a meat grinder, like people go, I'm going to do this. Yeah, you're bankrupt. Try again. Right? When you have that meat grinder, and somebody gets through it, it's like, wow, okay, this is something real. We need to all be developing our own forms of education for others. I really believe that. There isn't anybody in this audience that doesn't know something that somebody else wants to learn. We all need to be teachers. I have my grandson right now, because I'm so concerned about this in the future. He's doing a daily career sheet for me. Name of a job, education required, average salaries, basic job description. One a day. Don't care what it is. Don't care what it is. I want to see one every day. After it's done, it gets 3-hole punch and stuck in a binder. Maybe he's 13 now. Maybe when he's 17, that binder might have some value in it. But I guarantee you, most of the stuff he's coming up with, even when it says bachelor's degree, they don't need one. You don't need one. I don't want to tell him what to do with his life. I want him to make that decision for himself. I just want it to be informed. But we all need to be teaching. We all need to be teaching. And I was having a discussion with him, and I actually brought him in, and I'm trying to get him to the point now where he's a little bit money motivated. And I was trying to explain that you can build businesses in anything. So you shouldn't do what I'm doing. We should build a business. And I opened up some of my financials to him. I showed him the sales that I've done with Vivor since inking that deal. I've showed him the sales of my courses. I showed him like my Amazon affiliate sales. I didn't even show him my primary revenue. Like, these are all things. I do this work here and you get paid residually. And this is how you stack that. And then I showed him how Excel works. And this is how you like figure out like what to do and how to do it. And then he said, so, but you're a podcaster. I said, yeah, I'm a podcaster, but you know what I really am? I'm a teacher. I'm a teacher. And I make more money than just about anybody else that would call themselves a teacher in the academic space. And I'm not bragging. I'm just saying, like, so if you told somebody, well, I want to be a teacher, they'd say, okay, that's a noble thing. And God, you'll be a hero that doesn't wear a cape, but you know you're never going to get rich. But how many really great teachers are very, very wealthy? Because when they say they're a teacher, they mean what they do, not their title. Most valuable thing I think you can do for others is teach. It is the giving of knowledge. And the knowledge is what, they tell you that education is priceless. No, it's not. Knowledge is priceless when it's applied. Applicable knowledge, thus applied, is priceless. And education is dog shit. Because what were you educated to do? Obey? Obey? Your degree in communications? Your degree in communications is priceless? What do you make a year? $41,000. What do you do? I work at Walmart. Your degree is not priceless. You can't put a price on it because it's worthless. If that's you. If that's you. So we need to change this. I like to talk about solutions more than I did today. But my hope is that you come away from this with a better understanding of the world that you're living in, so that you can figure out how to individually adapt to it. Because this is a pattern that's everywhere. Take any major industry. You can find the same pattern. What we've become is a parasitic society. We talk about the parasite class. We don't realize like we are all living in a parasitic society. Even if you're not individually a parasite, you're in a system so integrated with parasitism that the failure of the parasite in one area could hurt you even though you're not the parasite. How do I mean that? Okay, you run, let's see who's here. Mick, 229 Mick. 229 Mick lives in Sheboyganville, where the University of Sheboyganville is. And 229 Mick moved there 30 years ago as a young man. He was very entrepreneurial. He worked his ass off, and in about 5 years, he was able to buy a bar. And 229 Mick got behind the bar and polished it up and put in some TVs and brought in some chicken wings and became the toast of the town, especially for the college kids. 229 Mick is not a parasite in any way. He's providing a valid service. He worked hard. He earned some money. He borrowed some more. He went through the crushing crucible of establishing a bar from the ground up. He made it a success. And the University of Sheboyganville does not get enough students. And so it says, with great reverence, this institution of higher learning shall be no more. And goes away as though anybody really cares about it the way that they did. 229 Mick looks out his window and there are no people coming in this Friday night, and his bar goes under, and he has to sell his house, but there's no one to buy it because half of the town just got laid off. When we have this integrated parasite society where the parasite gets hurt, it trickles all the way through. It trickles all the way through. Builder of Castles also lives in Sheboyganville. He built up Builder of Castles Automotive Garage Services. He did such a good job, he was able to get a contract. He does all of the maintenance on all of the vehicles at Sheboyganville University. But Sheboyganville University, with great reverence, has closed its doors. They will not be getting their vehicles serviced at Builder's Workshop anymore. Mike drives a truck. He drives a truck bringing supplies to Sheboyganville University. It's closed. He's a truck driver. Maybe he can find another job, but probably not in Sheboyganville. He finally got off being an over-the-road truck driver, and he was able to stay home and be with his kids every night in Sheboyganville. That won't matter because they're not going to be living there much longer because it collapsed across the board. You know where the future is right now? Future's in agriculture. That's the number one place we have an opportunity to radically transform what we're doing with people providing real-world, impactful things that actually make the world a better place. Growing higher quality food for people to eat will always have a place. And we are ripe for it. We have a sickness and illness industry masquerading as a healthcare industry. We have more and more people aware of that every day. And the type of things we need to do require humans to get them done. That's like one of the major growth places that we have. We need education in that space. We need programs in that space to get people off the ground. We should be growing the most of our food in the county that it's consumed in. And I don't care if it's in the desert, the Pacific Northwest, Central Texas, Tennessee, it doesn't matter. It can be done anywhere, so it should be done everywhere. We need more and more ways for people to finance their way through trade schools. We need more and more things that are intellectual boot camps. But the biggest thing we need, because changing the education won't fix it in of itself, we need to stop confusing people from reality. We need to stop making failure bad, and we need to make failure a point of learning. How does a little kid learn to walk? You put a diaper on them, they start pulling themselves up, and when they're little and it doesn't hurt that bad, boom, down they go on the diaper, and they fall, and they learn from falling, so they learn to stand. What if you never let them fall? They'll never learn to walk. Like if you somehow braced up the baby so the baby can't fall down, the baby will never learn to walk. Whatever you did it with, the minute you take away, they'll have to learn to walk eventually. We need to stop holding people up, lifting. We need to lift people up. No, we need to let people struggle. That doesn't mean be evil to them. That doesn't mean harm them. That doesn't mean be malicious. But the world is a tough place. Stop pretending it isn't. Winners win, losers lose. But the biggest winners always lose before they win. It's a tough thing because it's a mental shift. It's far more mental a shift than anything else. And it's not just academics. Anyway, with that in mind, I hope you guys enjoyed today's show. If you want to support it, you can always help us out by doing your online shopping starting at tspaz.com. I have an item of the day for you today that's also a lesson. Last week, I said you should follow me, at least on the channel on Telegram. And you should do that because I get special deals that I make available to people. And if you miss the episode or the email or whatever, then you'll never know about it and it'll be gone. Friday, I was on the Vivor website and I found this 5-tray worm composter. And man, I like this thing. This thing is awesome. It is well built. It is well designed. It is well thought out, and it's affordable. A lot of these things are well over $100. I think it's too much to pay for basically a glorified plastic box. These are $85, and they are totally worth that. They have a drain that will collect your worm leachate. They have little footers that help keep, pest insects from getting inside, and it's just wonderfully built at $85. If you would have been on the Telegram channel on Friday, you could have got it for $60. minus 5%. Now you can get it for $85 minus 5%. It's still a good deal. I definitely recommend that you check it out. But remember, you can help out the Survival Podcast and the work we do anytime you shop online. Just go to tspaz.com first. You can see right here where it is. You got all my categories alphabetically arranged of everything I've ever reviewed and a whole bunch of other information. Shop the Vivor store, Amazon's bestsellers, current item of the day, information about the Amazon outlet, the Renewed store, all kinds of ways to save money and make better decisions with your purchasing, because I believe in value for value. The other thing I mentioned today, I think education is something we all need to be playing a role in. I think education should get, when you're thinking about spending your money on it, you should say, this is what you get for your money. And then you should get for your money what you were promised, right? I think we've done that with a simplified bioreactor composting course. It's only $40. Learn to make the best compost you've ever made in your life. I wanted to read one of our reviews today from GoryCAD. This course presents a well thought out method to make great compost in your backyard. I've been making compost for my garden for over a decade. Unfortunately, my previous methods are best described as throw everything in a pile and sift out some compost when I need it. After this course, I understand why that's not the most effective use of my time and resources. The chapter on compost application methods also taught me more than I had expected. In the past, I've spread compost on top of the soil and let it there baking in the sunlight. Now I understand that good compost needs to be treated with care and not to kill the biology that's living inside of it. I'm excited for spring to arrive so that I can start applying the things I've learned in my own garden. That's one of our reviews. Guys, if you've taken the course, we could use some more reviews. All the ones we have are great, but we could definitely use some more reviews. And you can learn more about that course and the free course on principle-based permaculture design at homefoodssystems.com. With that, I'm going to wrap up. Hope you guys enjoyed it again. I am sorry that I spent most of this episode beating up on the problem, but we need to understand the problem. And honest to God, if this episode takes one person who would have went to college and ended up $100,000 in debt, and they end up with an excellent career without that debt, it's probably worth it. Take care, guys. I'll catch you tomorrow. Tomorrow I'll be with John Willis and Nicole Awesome Sauce for the first Tuesday coffee chat. Catch you then, guys. Take care.